Welcome to session 2 of What's Your Why? We are talking about why are we transformed, right? Greg is doing this series on our transformed life, that God's grace and mercy, it transforms us. But before we talk about being transformed, we want to step back a little bit and say, but why? Why does His grace, why does His mercy matter? And why does it transform me? So last week we talked about the existence of God. We answered the question, can I believe in Him? Can I believe in God? Does He exist? And I hope that as we talked about it, that you wrestled with it this week and you've come to a place of saying, yeah, I know that God exists. And if you have more questions or you want to talk about this more, feel free to ask me or your small group leaders because we'd love to talk to you about it. But now that we can agree that God exists, He does exist, we can know this God, right? And we have the Bible to tell us all about Him. The Bible is a story about who God is. And when we read it, we learn that He is good, that He's loving, He's merciful, He's just, He's perfect. He's this amazing God. But then the question is, if He's good and loving and perfect, why is the world so evil? Why is life so hard? Can I trust Him? Which leads us to our question tonight. Can I trust Him? Right? We can believe in Him. We know that there's this God. We know that God exists. But can I trust Him? Can I trust that He is good? Can I trust Him when we are in a pandemic? When we are anxious? When we're depressed? When we're grieving? Right? We see all these things and we experience all these things and we know that He's good and loving, but can we trust Him? And so tonight I want us to wrestle with that. I want us to ask questions and talk about that. Now, there's one man named Ravi Zacharias. He is a famous apologist, or he was a famous apologist and theologian. And he answered this question of how is there evil in the world? How could a good God allow evil and suffering? And he said, okay, we know that God created us. We know that there's this infinite, good, and perfect God that created us. And there are only 4 possibilities of God in His creation. First, that God would create nothing at all, right? That's one possibility. There's this God and He creates nothing at all. Second, that God would create a world where there was no such thing as good or evil, right? It'd be immoral. An immoral world. There's no such thing as good or evil. Third, God could create a world where we were programmed to only choose good, right? So He creates this world we're only programmed to choose good. Or fourth, He could create this world where there's the possibility of good or evil, and then we choose, right? So 4 possibilities. Nothing at all. He creates nothing at all. He creates a world where there's no such thing as good or evil. Or He creates a world where we're programmed to only choose good. Or He creates a world with the possibility of good or evil, and we have the freedom to choose. But only this last one. Only where there's the possibility of good or evil and we get to choose, it's in that one where love is possible. Love is only possible in this scenario. And that's important because we are programmed to love, to desire love. It's this supreme ethic that we long for, that we strive for. You can see it even in a baby's face when a baby looks at its mother, right? There's love there. We are created to long for relationship. Ravi Zacharias, in the video I watched, shared a story of his grandson, who's 3.5. His grandchild, his name's Jude. And Jude's mother was looking for her car keys. She had lost her car keys. And she's looking everywhere. And she pauses and she puts her head, slaps her forehead, and she says, I must be losing my mind. And Jude, this 3.5-year-old, says to his mom, Mommy, whatever you do, please don't lose your heart because I'm in there. All right, this is really sweet. But how does that kid know that? How does he know at this young age how important love is? Love is this craving of the human heart to belong, to belong in the sacredness of trust and relationship. It's what we long for. God gave us the greatest gift and vulnerability by giving us the freedom to choose. By having the freedom to choose good or evil, love is able to exist. So I want you to take some time in your small group to talk about these 4 possibilities and to really wrestle with, can I trust God? Maybe just hearing that brings up a lot of questions for you. I want you to ask Him. Let's talk about it. Can we trust God? How do we know that He's good and loving? I hope that you have a great discussion. I'm excited to hear about it and hear of any questions you might have.